Here we are again with the number 8 story, my first World Series from this book I've been reading from, Escape from Mount Moriah, Jack Engelhard. This is a short one, so I might be able to read 2 this time. We'll see. My first World Series. Canada has the reputation for being cold. Yet I remember summer days in Montreal when there was nothing to do but sweat. Sometimes, it seemed, the city came to a stop. If you listened, you could hear the clunk of a baseball bat against pavement, but not much more. One such day, I don't remember the year, but it must have been the early 1950s, I meandered up Fairmont Street for no other purpose than to be out of the house. At worst, I'd stop at Abe's, and for a quarter, get me a nice thick milkshake. But a new candy news and soda shop had opened directly across from Abe's. The store did a good business, mainly because of the owner's daughter. She worked behind the counter and was semi-full. She was a beautiful and sexy lady. She had pitch black hair and wore a nurse's tunic. She had large, ripe, upright breasts, and the reason, I noticed, was because who couldn't? She was always leaning over the counter, sharing whispers with the older guys. There was laughter. I never knew the joke. I used to observe all this from outside. One day, I decided to go in. The daughter was there behind the counter, but down at the other end, exchanging the usual secrets with 2 guys who wore white suits and black shirts. One of them was twirling a long keychain. I sat down at the counter, but it was as though I were invisible. I did not have the courage to demand service. I was just a kid. Had the feeling that I was not necessary here, but even then, I was a person of extremes. I figure people who do not love me hate me. But right in front of me was a television set, and this was good. Better yet, a baseball game was on. Not just any baseball game, the World Series, I thought. Never mind the milkshake. Instead, I'd get to watch my first World Series. That, I concluded, was how I'd spend the afternoon, and it seemed quite wonderful. I watched a couple of innings and was very much caught up in the game when the guy with the keychain said, "It's hot out here. Let's go in back." The other guy said, "Let's bring the TV." "But the kid's watching it," the daughter said. Then she giggled when one of them whispered to her. Mr. Keychain walked over, unplugged the set, and carried it off. They all disappeared into the back. I waited a few minutes as if something might still happen. But what could happen? So I got up and left. Outside, it was still very hot. Here's one of my favorites in the book, I think. I Resign. My first job was with a man named Mr. Cohen, who ran a nursery. When I first went out there to Côte de Neige, in the vast outskirts of Montreal, I thought I'd be working with children. These turned out to be plants. The job required being on your knees all morning and afternoon to pull out weeds, row after row, under a spiteful July and then August sun. The weeds grew fast. One day I counted them, how many I was pulling, and the total came to 6,740. They also grew tall and thick, and you never knew what lurked between them. Rats, for example. Rats bigger than dogs. One afternoon there I was, face to face with the rat. He stayed. I ran. I told Mr. Cohen about it, and he laughed. As for me, I did not think it was so funny. I did not think it so funny. I was about 14 then. Most boys my age were delivering newspapers, but we needed more money. So each day for a good part of that summer, I took 3 streetcars to Côte de Neige and 3 streetcars back, an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half at night, and in between I pulled weeds. Now the thirst was the worst of it. No matter how much water you drank, it was never enough. The walk from Mr. Cohen's nursery to the first streetcar stop was about 2 miles, and I walked this distance, filthy from dust and empty from thirst. I passed beautiful new suburban homes, another life to me. People would be sitting outside on their lawns, watering the grass. What a waste of water, I thought. What were they watering anyway? Weeds? Or they'd be eating juicy watermelon. Now I know this is what I saw. I once saw Maurice Richard sitting outside just like that, eating watermelon. Maurice Richard, the Babe Ruth of hockey. I never even told my friends about this. First, nobody sees God, so how can you see Maurice Richard? Second, this was mine. I wanted to keep it to myself. I did tell Mr. Cohen about it, and he laughed. I hated this job very much. One day Mr. Cohen asked me to run a hose over a long row of flowers. I'm promoting you, he said with a chuckle. Accidentally, I aimed the hose in his direction and drenched him from head to toe. I missed no part of him. I needed a shower anyway, he said. I said to myself, I am not long for this job. One more rat, I promised myself, and I'm gone for good. Goodbye. Only a few days later, nearing the end of August and the beginning of school, here was that rat standing between me and the weed I was about to extract. I fled to Mr. Cohen's office. Before stepping in, I took time to collect myself. Then I said, Mr. Cohen, can I talk to you for a minute? Even 2, he said. I felt awful. Never before had I resigned. Mr. Cohen, I said, I resign. He laughed. You resign? What's so funny? Resign was serious business. Yes, I resign. Resign? Yes, I said. You? He said. You resign? Yes, I said. I resign. No, you don't resign. Yes, I do resign. Then he explained. Presidents resign. Prime ministers resign. You? All this over a single word. Had I said something so terrible? Apparently, yes. For Mr. Cohen was almost violently particular about this. That I was quitting, this bothered him not at all. That I was resigning, this infuriated him. You, he said, you quit. He wanted me to say the words. I realized that by quitting, I was the weed picker that I was, there among the worm, the ant, the rat. By resigning, I was soaring to the heights of presidents and prime ministers, and certainly well beyond the reach of Mr. Cohen. No wonder he was outraged, especially when, after he offered to double my severance pay, I still refused to quit. No, I resigned. Here's where he's getting his chutzpah. All his experiences he's going through is going to create an iron spine in this little kid. So that's good for today, and we'll see what tomorrow brings.